Welcome to The Explainer. We spend our entire days telling stories, sharing news, repeating things we've heard. But have you ever really stopped to think about how we do that? Today, we're going to break down the rules for reporting what people say, so you can do it perfectly with a little bit of style.
Okay, let's jump right in. It's the classic he said, she said situation, right? We're always reporting what someone else said. A piece of gossip, instructions from your boss, a story from a friend. The real question is, are we saying it right? Well, today we're going to figure that out.
So the fancy term for all this is reported speech. Think of it like a giant umbrella that covers any time you're passing on what someone else said or thought. And under that umbrella, you've really got two main types, two different ways of doing it. And here are two flavors, direct speech and indirect speech. Honestly, the difference is super simple, but really important. Direct speech is when you quote the exact words. You're putting it in quotation marks, like a perfect little recording. Indirect speech, that's when you're just reporting the main idea. The gist of what they said. No quotes needed.
Okay, so let's tackle the first one, direct speech. This is all about getting that quote exactly right.
Yeah, the best way to think about direct speech is that you're literally hitting the record button. You're capturing everything, just as it was said. Their exact words, the tense, the pronouns, the whole shebang. It's like taking a perfect, untouched photograph of their speech.
So how does it actually work? Well, you've got two main parts. First, the words someone actually spoke. Those go inside the quotation marks. And second, you've got what's called a reporting clause, which is just that little tag like she said or the teacher asked. And what's cool is you can move that tag around. You can stick it at the beginning, pop it in the middle, or add it at the end.
Here's a perfect example. I'm going home, said John. See how that works? Putting the said John part after the quote is super common, especially in books. It has a really nice flow, doesn't it? But wait a second. Did you notice something a little funky there? It says said John, not John said. What's up with that? Well, that little flip-flop is a stylistic trick called subject-verb inversion. It's just when the verb said comes before the subject, John.
Now, you don't have to do this. John said is totally fine. But putting the verb first, said John, it's a neat little writer's trick. It keeps the energy on the dialogue and lets the sentence kind of flow to a close. It's one of those tiny things that can make writing feel a lot more professional, especially in stories.
All right, enough about direct quotes. Let's flip the coin and talk about indirect speech. This is what you use when you're not interested in the exact words, just the message.
Honestly, this is probably the one we all use the most in our day-to-day lives. When you're telling your friend what happened at work or summarizing a phone call. You're not quoting anyone word for word. You're paraphrasing. You're giving the content, not the exact script.
And this slide is so important. Look at the change here. Direct, I will meet you here tomorrow. But when we report it, it becomes, she said she would meet me there the next day. Everything shifts to our perspective now. I changes to she, here changes to there, and tomorrow changes to the next day. It all has to make sense from the point in time when we are doing the telling.
So how do we make this big shift? How do we convert from a direct quote to an indirect report? It might seem kind of tricky at first, but trust me, there's a really clear step-by-step process to it. It all comes down to these three key shifts. That's it, just three things to remember. You got to shift the tense, you got to shift the pronouns, and you got to shift any words about time and place. Let's walk through each one.
First up, the tense shift. This is often called backshifting, which is a great name for it, because all you're doing is taking the verb and moving it one step back into the past. So if someone says, I am tired, you report that he was tired. If they said, we saw a movie, you report they had seen one. And if they say, I will help, you report she would help. See? Just one step back.
Okay, shift number 2 is the pronoun shift. And this one is pretty much just common sense. The pronouns have to change so the sentence makes sense from your perspective. If he says, I am happy, well, you're going to report that he was happy. If she says, you are smart to you, you'd tell someone else, she told me I was smart. It just has to be logical.
And the third and final shift is for time and place. Just like with the pronouns, these words have to make sense from your new perspective. So if the original speaker said here, you'll probably say there. If they said today, you'll change it to that day, and tomorrow becomes the next day. You're basically updating the GPS coordinates and the calendar for your report.
But, with every rule in English, there's always an exception, right? And here it is. If someone says something that is a universal truth, like a scientific fact that's always true,
You actually don't have to do the backshift. So if someone says the Earth is round, you can report that they said the Earth is round, or was round. In this case, both are perfectly okay.
Okay, so we've got the technical stuff down, but let's talk about making your writing a little more spicy. Look, the word said is fine. It's the vanilla ice cream of reporting verbs. It gets the job done. But it's just the beginning. There's a whole world of other verbs out there.
And this is where your writing can really come alive. Instead of just saying someone said something, you can show us how they said it. Did they whisper it? Did they yell it? Maybe they grumbled it, or insisted, or demanded. Each one of these words paints a totally different picture and tells us so much more about the speaker's emotion and intention.
So at the end of the day, what's the big takeaway? Knowing the difference between direct and indirect speech isn't just about being correct. It's about being a better communicator, a better writer. It's about making a choice. So, which tool are you going to use? Do you want the raw power and authenticity of a direct quote, or do you need the smooth, flowing narrative of an indirect report? Which one is more powerful? Well, that's for you to decide.